get some kind of understanding. And I realized that I was basically, I worried about things. I was anxious, and I didn't like that feeling. It was uncomfortable. I just didn't. I liked being happy, and then when I was anxious and nervous, it just kind of, why do I feel like there must be some process I can, stop that from happening.
Yeah. Did you feel peer pressure? Because obviously if you're in a certain circle of people and there's a kind of a sense of this is where things are going, to kind of go in a different direction, was there a lot of people sort of saying...
It wasn't like that in the 60s. I think it's hard to imagine for people who weren't there, but it was very freeing, because you got to, there were hippie aristocrats, it was just like, everyone was just all in together. It was kind of very nice, actually. This thing about celebrities, you go to a place, celebrities were there. It was just very easy. That's people talk about it because it's very iconic now, but that's what was happening.
Today, if you got the equivalent of these great rock stars, you wouldn't get anywhere near them. It's like a PR machine, and layers of publicity.
Absolutely,
so it seems quite shocking to, looking at that, was it that easy to literally walk in and meet people?
Yeah, it's kind of funny because, and I'm not saying this to boast, but I was living in Montague Square, and my friend said to me, "Oh, Jimi Hendrix is living in Ringo Starr's house just across the square. Should we go and visit him?" Okay. Now, I didn't even take a camera. That's how important it was for me that evening. So I just went over and we, sat with him and had a cup of tea and chatted. Now I think about it, why didn't you take a camera? You'd have all these unique shots of him. But it's just like, that's what it was like. And, they were just starting off, so they weren't these iconic figures. They were just they were the musicians at that time.
And what was your relationship with your family, with your parents, kind of in that sort of process? Because obviously a lot of young people trying to find themselves, find that one of their biggest struggles is actually, one of the talks last night was about that, how family can often be a hindrance when you're trying to change where you're going.
No, my parents were amazing. It phased them for me to turn up with a couple of rock stars and loads of friends, and they just lay on this spread of tea and everything. They were amazing, my parents, really. And they watched me go through all these phases, vegetarianism and meditating and hair long, head shaved after Hajj, No, they're amazing.
When you first went to India, what was the reaction of the people there? Because obviously you're this sort of new generation of Europeans who are coming for enlightenment. How did people take that? But also, what did you tell us a bit more about that? Who you met and how you went through that process?
I was basically going on my own, but some friends of mine who were followers of a Sikh teacher, they were going to visit their teacher in it was a place called Bias, just south of Amritsar. So I thought I'll go with them. Maybe he's the teacher I'm looking for. So I went with them, and I met him. I really liked him. He was really entrancing. It was really interesting to have a meeting with him. But I kind of felt he wasn't the guy that I'd come to see. So I left them there, and I just sort of went off, and I did these incredible journeys. People who know from India, you do like 3-day train rides and stuff, and it was just amazing. So I think from there I went to Bihar State, and then I heard the Kumbh Mela was on in Allahabad, so I went to Allahabad and attended the Kumbh Mela. It's like, how many people? 6 million people or something. It's just like unbelievable.
That's I think it's every 4 years, isn't it? Or something?
6 years.
6 years.
Yeah. And not much happened. Some people took me into their house, and they were very friendly, but then I noticed all my money disappeared. Okay, time to move on. So then I was just traveling on my own. But what was really interesting about India was that I always had somebody accompanying me. Someone would come up to me and start talking and share food, and then so much so that they say, "Oh, I have to go now," and I say, "Okay, who's next?" So I always had like traveling companions, and it just and I ended up down in from Allahabad. I went to Hyderabad, then Bangalore, and then I went to Budapest, which is where Sai Baba was, and I ended up staying there, between there and his place near Bangalore for 6 months.
Mm. And then, Islam suddenly seems, because obviously that's quite a well-known path of you know, Hare Krishnas and the Beatles and Indian spirituality, whether it ends up being yoga and joss sticks. It's sort of, it's something that you can actually bring back to England and keep working with it in a very basic way. But until I met you, I'd never heard that hippies were, because Islam's the opposite about discipline and getting up very early and and not eating for a whole month and that kind of stuff. So tell us a bit again about that period. How did you first even hear that people were thinking about Islam?
Well, to be honest, I didn't know. I knew very little about Islam. In fact, when I was living in Puttaparthi, I lived in this old pump house. It was by a well. That was where I was living. And well, now I think about it, there was a little mosque nearby. So every morning when I used to get up to meditate, there was the guy calling the adhan. So that was quite interesting. And then also the other thing that happened that I never realised at the time, but now when I think about it, it's pretty amazing. I was on a station, I can't remember what station it was, but India always seemed like everybody was on the move in India. Everyone has everything they own and they're everyone's travelling with all their possessions. And I was on this station, it was early morning, packed station, and it was like really kind of a bit chaotic, so many people moving around things. And I suddenly saw this old lady roll out a prayer mat and start praying. Now, I'd never seen this before. I mean, it's just kind of... So I immediately went over there, and there was a young man standing there, and I said, "Excuse me, what's this?" And he said, "Oh, it's my grandmother. She's a Muslim. She's praying." Now, when I think about it, it's just amazing, because God showed me almost in a snapshot a woman in perfect stillness amongst complete chaos. I mean, if you think, it's just like you couldn't have made for a photographer. It's like, I mean, I was so caught up in the moment, I didn't even think about photographing it, but do you know what I mean? It was just, there was this woman in perfect stillness with all this, despite everything that was happening.
Chaos,
Yeah. So that went in, and then I forgot about it. And then when I came back to England, a group of musicians that I had known before, they'd become Muslim while I'd been in India. And yet other friends I knew had got really heavily into drugs or black magic or all kinds of strange things. So it was God showing me pretty clearly, if you want to save your soul, just go. Yeah. So it was a leap of faith, because I didn't really know that much about it. I knew that Islam believed in one God, it accepted all the prophets, which is kind of what I believed anyway. So, I mean, I keep thinking, if I was at that same position now, what's happening in the world, it would not be an easy decision. Guys beheading people and all this madness that's going on. I just would not be. But it was clear. Hardly anyone knew anything about Islam,
But what did you see about Islam that gave you that clarity? In terms of, was it other people, what they did, or how they were, or was it that you read deeper? What was the?
I think I trusted those people that they'd made that decision, and it just had a clearness to me. But I also, I was wrestling with it a little bit.
And were you meeting Muslims? Did you come in contact with them?
There was a small group of American and English people who had become Muslim, but I still wasn't sure. I was still kind of having a bit of a dilemma about it. And then I had various things that happened to me. I had a couple of dreams that were very clear. One of them was that my teacher in India was standing at the door of a classroom, and in this classroom were these people that I'd met who had entered Islam. And he was standing on the doorway, inviting me into the room, so that was one thing that happened. I went to some talk by some yoga, and he said suddenly in the middle of the talk, "Out of confusion comes fusion." And I thought, wow, that's... And then you hear things like, the only thing that's stopping you is yourself, and then you just think, come on, I can't resist. It's such a strong force, it's the direction I have to go.
Yeah. So this is the end of the 60s, early 70s?
No, this is, I went to India at the beginning of 70s and then came back, so I became a Muslim just before Ramadan that year.
Right.
And then 3 months later I went on Hajj, and I spent 2 weeks going from office to office, being this strange English person, saying, "I want permission to take pictures of the Hajj, Go and ask the next guy. No one wanted to take responsibility. Yeah. And after about 2 weeks, they kept sending me to office to office to office. And then I went, I can still see the guy now, his name was Suleiman. I went in this big office. I said, "I want to take pictures of the Hajj." He said, "I will give you permission. And I will give you a soldier to keep you company so nobody attacks you." And that's how I did it.
And off you went?
So I did the
Yeah.
Hajj, and
And you've been a Muslim, what, about a year? Or
No,
not even a
3
year?
months.
3 months,
3
wow.
months.
Great.
And I came to be Muslim, and I went to
Yeah.
Morocco. I spent the whole month of Ramadan in a zawiya. If you know what a zawiya is they're usually the places of the sheikhs, the teachers. So it's like a place where they do the prayers and they have nights of invocation and stuff. So I lived. It's a really poor place. I mean, really, the people in there, it's very poor, and that was a cultural shock for me. You know, I'd become a Muslim, and then there were these really tough-looking guys with big beards, and they looked so fierce. I said, I think I made a mistake. Maybe I should go back to becoming Hindu. And I found they were really sweet and very generous, and you know, I got to know these people, and a lot of them are in my book. So you know, Meetings of Mountains.
And that first experience of going to Mecca, going to the Hajj, I mean, obviously there's the spiritual experience, what you must have encountered,
Yeah.
but what were people's reactions to you? I mean, how many white Europeans had become Muslims and were, you know, there?
Well, they didn't believe us.
And then taking pictures as well, I mean, obviously. That's
Yeah, they didn't believe us, and we were hauled in front of these people and asked to say the Shahada, and we were saying, why are you sitting on chairs? You should be sitting on the floor. So we were like very critical of all these people that claimed they owned Islam, and so we were quite, yeah, and we did the Hajj, and it was typical Hajj, you know, the mutu disappeared with them. We had nowhere to stay. I got sunstroke out in the, it was, you know,
yeah.
but it was an amazing experience.
And comparing that to like what it's like now, I mean, you must have also seen it when it was quite
I'm so
ramshackle and basic.
I'm so
and,
pleased
yeah.
I had that Hajj. I can't, for the last year I can't go. It's just upset me. I mean, they're ripping that place to pieces. I mean, it's really sad, you know, it's really, they can't be called the protectors of the Haramain. They're the destructors of the Haramain, really. It's shocking, you know, what they've done to that place. And it's all done in the name of progress, but, you know, if, you know, when Sinan was asked to build something around the Kaaba, he built this, you know, the simple white. And they said, you built Suleimaniya, this is what, he said, I don't want anything that will overshadow the Kaaba. And now look, we have this, the king, what I call the King Kong building. It's just you know, it's fine in Dubai. It's great, you can have it in Dubai, but not in Mecca. This is a sacred city. We're losing it. We're losing the whole sacredness of that place, you know.
I mean, on that point, you're looking through your you know, your work. Sadly, a lot of places are disappearing very quickly. I mean,
Yeah.
urbanisation is taking place, modernisation, and then, in fact, now destruction through war.
Yeah.
Were you very conscious at the time that you're recording, perhaps, you know, things which may not be there again? Or?
Yeah, I mean, I look at that stuff. It was 30 years of intensive travelling, and I really realised I was witnessing the end of something, you know. And I got to see, you know, traditional societies where people live out in the desert with the sheikh as the teacher, and they're studying with him, and you know, that picture is disappearing. You know, yeah, I was very lucky, and I'm only really understanding now in hindsight. You know, I went in all that bit that they've just ripped out in the Haraman, which is all the history is in that bit they've just ripped out. I was sent to document all that, you know, and you know, I spent 3 weeks in the Haramain with a large 10x8 camera documenting all the history is in there, all these columns that came across from Syria and Jordan and Iraq. We all have calligraphy on. I mean, it's all gone now.
Mm. And again, when I first saw your work, some of the pictures you've taken of the Kaaba are still to this day, you know, completely outstanding compared to a lot of what we see. So, can you tell us a bit? I mean, that's obviously a very official kind of position you had, and tell us a bit about the technical equipment you used to get such amazing pictures.
I've gone there on various times working for different people. The biggest project I had was sorry to mention the name, the Saudi bin Laden, not Osama bin Laden, but his family have the construction. They've done most of the construction in the Haram since when did the first
80s? Is it like 80s? Mid-80s?
I think the first one they did was the 80s.
Yeah.
So I was commissioned to document when they did this very extensive changes in the 90s. So I was commissioned, and they were very keen that we use large format. We didn't use 35mm, and also to use, as I said, 10x8. So I used to go in when I was doing that project inside the house. I'd have 30 boxes of equipment and no assistant. You know, I had to get all this stuff into the haram and stuff, and it was incredible. And I spent 3 weeks in there working and stuff. One day, I was in there, and this girl came up to me, and she opened up her niqab, and she had like a 35mm with a long telephoto lens. She said, "Could you take my picture?" And I went, "Oh my goodness!" I said, "There's so many people watching me, because I know all these guys were watching it, you know." And I said, "If I do, you'll be in so much trouble, and so will I." She smuggled it in.
Were you aware at the time that your work was sort of, I mean, obviously sort of, there's been times when you go because you're paid to go as a photographer, and there's other times when you sort of sponsor your own trip because you want to go there.
Yeah.
What point did you sort of become very conscious that you're consciously trying to capture a particular type of moment or a particular type of subject, as it were?
The funny thing is, I don't think I really consciously thought it. I just kind of was slightly driven. It was a kind of passion. I mean, I was looking for kind of romantic pictures that remind me of what Islam used to be. I mean, I was trying to avoid all of the Nike suits and the kind of the stuff that I didn't like. So, what did they call those people? The painters that used to go from the Victorian period.
Pre-Raphaelites?
Not the pre-rap, but the other guys.
Romantics? Or
Yeah, I kind of realised it was a kind of romantic view, but I was really trying to capture something that showed the spiritual side of it. I didn't want to do a too literal version of it. I know it's very fashionable now to do kind of street, very literal stuff, but I was really trying to capture something of, you know, so that the shot of the guy praying outside the tent, that was to me like, that's the classic shot, you know, out in the desert, you know, that you never see anymore. So I was looking for these kind of shots as a kind of reminder to myself and others, you know, this is what we had, you know, don't forget it, you know.
I think I can't tell you how much of an inspiration you've been to me, because it's so easy to kind of actually keep your spirituality for the mosque or for your house and then go off and do your day job. But the thought that actually you could begin to bring your creativity or your work and bring the values that you have into what you do was just a kind of an eye-opener for myself, because how we've been brought up here, being both Pakistani and British at the same time, we're quite used to compartmentalising identity. So you just put that one there and you put that one, and you get really good at navigating the two. And so the idea to integrate this thing was quite. It's been quite an amazing inspiration for myself, actually. And I think now more. I mean, do you notice that more people are waking up to that idea? That it doesn't, because for a lot of artists, always. I mean, I was going to ask you this question: is money or art?
Yeah.
You know. I mean, how have you found that compromise?
Yeah, I've been quite strict, and I've turned down a lot of work that probably could have made me a lot of money. You know, I've turned down jobs that I just didn't want to do, because I just thought I couldn't be passionate about it. You know, I have to be true to myself. I think that's what came out of the 60s for me. I was really just following my own journey, and somehow God managed to help me kind of, you know, look after myself. So it was just trusting in myself quite a lot. And I've always felt quite strongly that I need to follow my passion and my interest and just photograph that and see where it goes. And it's been, I wouldn't replace it for anything. I mean, I tried 9 to 5 for a year. I just couldn't. I tried, you know, I really did my best, but like, I get tired after lunch. I want to sleep. I don't sleep, but you know, I mean, your creative energy. I'm an early person. I like to get up early, stay awake, and I can do like 3 hours work before the rest of the house wakes up, and I'm so happy. I'm fired up for the day. That's, you know, and in the evening, forget it. You know, it's like, so you know, each person has to find your own ebbs and flows. I mean, you couldn't have a whole society built like that. I mean, nothing would ever get built. Hospitals would never run and stuff, but I'm just talking about creatives in a way. So I've been lucky, and I've been very fortunate to kind of do that. And at a certain point, I think, once I had a family, then I had to be a bit more realistic about money and stuff. And so my wife and we have bills to pay. So then I have to start asking people to pay me instead of doing everything for free. So at a certain point, I have to be a bit realistic about it. And I'm lucky. I have a couple of clients who give me paid jobs and that, you know, we live on that money and then do all the other projects that we're kind of like trying to finish, Meetings with Mountains and all these things. I have about 5 books that are half finished. I always have a lengthy line of projects I want to do.
And who inspires you? Whose work do you look at personally?
Photographers?
Yeah, photographers.
Yeah, I mean, 2 people that really inspired me a lot, and they're not that well known here. There's a couple called Roland and Sabrina Michaud, and I knew about their work in the late 60s, early 70s, and he had been into Afghanistan before the war, you know, when it was a beautiful place, and his pictures, he's really stunning, and he's done a lot of really interesting books, and I decided I should try and meet him, because to me he's like the sheikh of photography, and I couldn't find email address or anything. All I could find was a fax number. So I sent him a fax. This guy doesn't have a phone, he doesn't have email, nothing. And so I sent him a fax and said, I'm coming to Paris, I'd love to meet you, I'm getting on, you know, we should meet, you know. Didn't hear anything. 10 days later the phone rings, hi, this is Roland, yeah, we'll be there, we're travelling the next day to Bangladesh, please come and have tea. So we went and met him, and he opened the door, he said, what took you so long? And he's a lovely man, really. He still uses film. Him and his wife, he said the first trip they did was 15 months, and they realised something, it takes time. You can't just swan into somewhere in 2 weeks and hope to get great pictures. Him and his wife, they live very poorly, and they just live in these places with people. He's a master, really. So if you can find any of his books, they're really hard. I thought I knew all his books, and then I came back and realised there were loads that had been published and not in England. So I searched on the internet, and I managed to find copies of every book. Nearly all his books are sold out. They're really hard to find. But he just did an exhibition in Dubai, so I'm really pleased. I'm glad people are now becoming aware of him. So him, many people, Irving Penn. I mean, there's so many photographers like, you know, Henry Cartier-Bresson, who I used to think was slightly old-fashioned, but as a reportage photographer, he's amazing. You know, he's the one that had a whole, you know, just if you want to study philosophy of photography, you know, what's it called, the decisive moment. You know, that's it. That's his philosophy. You know. Don McCullum, one of the greatest war photographers, photographed all the great wars in the world, but still remained a gentleman. I mean, he's just so inspiring to listen to that guy talk. There are many. Many.
Okay.
Not so many Muslims. I'm waiting